Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alex Cuesta Daily Show. I hope everybody is doing well on this Friday, March 11th, 2022. Before we get into anything fun, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars on Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Let people know you enjoy the show and what goes on here on a daily basis. And also on socials, go search the Alex Cuesta Show. You'll find it anywhere on any social for the most part. And if I'm not somewhere, let me know and I can get there. So we're going to round out the week with the Biden COVID tracker. Let's jump right into it. As of yesterday, the cases were at 79,332,220. And that was a two-day average of 30,377. Deaths were at 963,307, two-day average, 1,865. So the numbers were looking pretty good yesterday, and things seemed like they were trending pretty well there. I made a mistake yesterday in speaking. I said that Biden's close to getting to 10,000 or something, or something like that. He's close to getting to 1 million deaths soon, not 10,000. 1 million deaths, and he'll be responsible for 600,000. So I just want to make sure I made that clear, that he's close to being responsible for 600,000 deaths and reaching the 1 million death total. And it's kind of news like today that doesn't seem to be great. Today's numbers weren't as good as they have been. We have cases at 79,409,602. That's an increase in 77,382. In deaths, we have 964,525. That's an increase in 1,218. Now, as I've said before, deaths certainly follow on a lagging basis. So even if the numbers continue to go up in cases, we'll see a lag in the deaths and it'll look better. And then it'll go and follow, because it kind of follows about a week or two behind. So a little concerning, 77,000 in one day. Coming up, but surges happen, little pop-ups happen, and that's with all diseases. That's not just COVID. You get, that's why sometimes you'll say, it's a bad flu season. And I know flu's tired because we keep on comparing it to the flu, and it is very comparable to the flu, whether people want to tell you like, it's molecular structure is different. Of course it's fucking different. They're not the same disease, but they have similarities in terms of how they, how they affect people, I guess. There's been a lot of similarities. So yes, we will see spikes. We will see surges for the rest possibly of our existence with COVID-19. Again, how am I going to put this? The fact that Joe Biden and his administration just are saying that we're going to have to deal with this isn't the problem, because a lot of people on the right have been saying that for a long time. What's the problem with Joe Biden saying it is, he came in here with his big bad plan and he was going to eradicate it because Donald Trump wasn't able to, because he's a failure and nothing he does is good. And then after we're going to eradicate, gets switched around and new normal, just going to have to live with it. You don't get to play at both sides, Biden, because he won't admit that he failed. I think that's the worst part. If he just flat out admits like, hey, my plan did not work, we're switching to plan B. I'm sorry for misleading the world and winning an election off of misleading everybody, but it didn't work. So again, we're holding him accountable. That's what we're doing. We are holding Joe Biden accountable for the debts that he has on his ledger, for the cases that he has on his ledger, because the mainstream media is not doing it. And I hate the word mainstream. The media, the corporate media, the leftist media, I think is a good way to put it. The leftist media, they're not doing it. So somebody has to. So this little podcast right here will do it. And again, I will do it until it reaches the endemic level. And the unfortunate part about the bump in cases here, and we'll see if it continues. The unfortunate part about the bump in cases, yes, it's unfortunate that more people are getting COVID, but it's also unfortunate because you're going to have the Joe Biden administration and their regime look at it and go, see, we have to keep our emergency powers. Look at that spike. Look, it's surging. We need to be able to control the people and shut down the country if we need to on a whim. We have to do it. So, and one other quick aside, people take issue with me calling Joe Biden's grouping that he's assembled to run the country a regime. one of the main reasons why I call it a regime, and Obama had a regime too, whenever you put czars places, and essentially what czars do is they have control of certain things. Whatever they're assigned to do, they have control. They essentially do the president's bidding, and they have a lot of power. They're an extension of the president. If anyone watched Game of Thrones, like the Hand of the King was essentially the king wherever he went. They were where the president is the most important diplomat and the commander in chief. His czars are right there. They are a step down in terms of their field of expertise that they were assigned to. They're not elected. They're not elected. But their words carry so much weight in their field, because what Joe Biden has essentially said when he does these czars, and Obama did as well, when they do these czars, is they are speaking for me. They are me. They don't have to come back to me in order to get approval to say things. Obviously, they're going to communicate. Well, most of the time they're going to communicate. I don't know if anybody communicates with Joe Biden, but they are going to communicate in some way about what the direction is. It's probably the rest of the regime talking and giving them talking points, just like they tell Joe to go say whatever. But they're absolutely going to, they're speaking with the authority of the president essentially in their field. So that is why I call it a regime, because you're putting, I get it, cabinet, secretary members, they're important, but they're acknowledged that they are employees underneath the president. They still don't have the power of the president. A secretary has a lot of power, but they do not have the power of the president. Where the difference is, a czar speaks with the voice of the president. So at least that's my understanding of it. Because if not, then what's the point of having a czar? Unless they're just trying to work around the secretary system because it's not assigned and they just want to do it, which in that case still is fucked up that they're just inventing these positions. But from my understanding with the way everything goes down with these czars, they kind of have free reign to do whatever the fuck they want in their field. So that's my reasoning for calling it a regime. Get over it if you don't like it. In terms of the cases and deaths, cases did pop up. I'm hoping to see it go down again. I'm hoping it was just a mini surge. Maybe we'll get a few days of this and it starts to go back down. Deaths obviously will follow. We might see another few days of 3,000 deaths plus 2,000 deaths, something like that, which sucks. All these deaths are shitty. The fact that we're still losing 1,000 people a day at minimum sucks. But it is going away, people. It is an endemic. Even with this spike, it is at an endemic. They just refuse to not call it an endemic. So let's get to the article of the day. This one is coming to us from Yahoo Finance, and it was written by Alexandra Semenova. By the way, Alexandra, you have a great fucking name. Alex Power to all of us. It was written yesterday on the 10th, and the title is, "Here are the companies still doing business in Russia undeterred." Now, just from the headline, undeterred, they're already painting this out to seem like the fact that the companies are still doing business in Russia, that they are a boogeyman, that they're bad people for doing that right away. Because what we've seen right now, I don't know what you would call it, Russia-phobia. The world has Russia-phobia. Anything Russian, anything that has to do with Russia is persona non grata. They're supposed to be punished. You're not allowed to, Russia's a dirty word, which is interesting because I remember the leftist not too long ago saying 1980s wants their policy back in terms of all the Red Scare. Yes, Russia invaded Ukraine. They are wrong for doing and attacking a sovereign nation. But why is everything Russian all of a sudden bad? It's not like hurting the Russian people is going to truly affect Vladimir Putin. And that's all that's going on right now. Everybody is taking out their fear of Vladimir Putin and, trying to get on the cool train of saying, yeah, fuck Russia. But instead they say, fuck Putin, which in turn means fuck Russia. And the Russian people who have nothing to do with Vladimir Putin are getting the brunt of this. So let's keep going. Let's get going on this article because it's interesting and there's a big takeaway from it. And honestly, it's one of the most important articles written in a little while that I've read because of the implications of it. So let's go. A corporate exodus from Russia in response to its military invasion of Ukraine has seen more than 300 U.S. and multinational companies sever business ties with the country, and the list is growing by the minute. But even as many flee, a number of big-name firms have remained mum. So let's break that down real quick. They talk about 300 US and multinational companies. And that, in a normal sense, if you aren't looking for certain things, that seems benign. You're going to monitor all the companies that have left because that's what's cool. But when you're reading things from the perspective of, and maybe it's wrong to read it this way, maybe I'm trying to read into shit too much, but when you see the underhanded tactics that the left does and leftists do, and when I say left, I don't mean Democrats, everybody, people. I don't mean Democrats. I mean leftist. I mean collectivist, Marxist, all the above, your communist, your hardcore socialist, your social democrats. They are the left. They are the leftist. There's a difference between an American Democrat and a leftist. So just want to get that out there. But when they're speaking US and multinational, they're coupling them because these people speak on a global scale. They don't speak in just United States. They speak in a global scale. The United States can never stand alone in their eyes. They always have to be doing things on the globe. So the global scale. So let's keep going here. So we're reading into that. Among them are US consumer favorites, including Subway and Mondelez. Hotel giant Marriott can also be found on the docket of corporations that have not suspended or reduced their exposure to Russia's market. So right away, they're calling out some big names, and they're unapologetic about calling them out. And they're calling them out for not pulling out of Russia, or at least limiting what they're doing in Russia. Because again, like I said, Red Scare is back. If you are doing anything in Russia, you're an asshole. Anything at all. If you're giving the Russian people jobs, you're an asshole. Because apparently giving the Russian people jobs and letting the Russian people make money and try and go about their day as normal as possible while their tyrannical fucking leader, Putin, who they have no choice but to continue to elect because all the elections are shams there, is doing something that they probably don't agree with, but we're going to hurt them and we're going to pressure everybody to get out. Keep going. Since President Vladimir Putin's war on Ukraine began on February 24th, which has so far led to 2 million refugees and more than 1,000 civilian casualties recorded by the United Nations, around 330 companies have withdrawn from Russia in protest of the Kremlin as of March 10th, according to a list compiled by Yale professor Jeffrey Sonnenfeld and his research team. Still, 39 continue to operate in the country despite mounting pressure to take action. So here's the fucking crazy part. Usually, in the normal geopolitical scale of things, dating back to probably less than a decade ago, when governments got in conflict, corporations didn't get involved. Corporations weren't normally political. They weren't getting involved. But now, as you see, it's expected for corporations to take a stand. It's expected for them to take a stand, to take action. Because, oh no, you can't be taking that dirty Russian money. Don't do it. Don't take the ruble because that's bad. That's really bad. The only ones that are understandable in terms of pulling out in certain things are the ones that are affected by sanctions. And if they want to kind of reduce their numbers because they're not going to be able to make money there, like the oil things going on. If you're an oil company, an American oil subsidiary that works and does business in Russia, but you're going to be unable to make any profit, makes sense to pull yourself out of there because there's nothing doing anyway. But these companies that are just doing it willy-nilly are taking a political stand when companies normally did not do that up until recent history. And I'll tell you the reason flat out. I'm not going to kind of hide the headline here. It's because of ESG scores. We hear ESG all the time now. If you're reading about anything in finance or hiring, hire ESG, search for ESG. What is ESG? We've talked about it before. Environmental, social, governance. And as of now, a lot of places are trying to hide it and say, no. It's only in the financial sector. It's in the, it's hedge funds. They do ESG. And what does that mean? What is their stance on the environmental policies? How are they trying to better the environment in terms of leftism, in terms of leftists, not in terms of everybody, but what leftists believe helps the environment? So your Green Party and shit like that. The people that believe that cow farts are bad, that group of people. Social. So how are you on your social policies? How are you supporting Black Lives Matter? Are you an anti-fascist? Do you really like Russia still? And do you want that dirty Russian money? and governance. Are you switching from shareholder to stakeholder capitalism? Are you not trying to please the group of people that invested in your company, gave you an upteen amount of capital because of their investments, and allowed you to grow and do the business that you do? Or are you going to be beholden to the stakeholder, the person that works for you, the person that purchases things for you, the person that has no fucking clue how your business actually works? They work for you, they produce your product, but they actually don't know your business side. And you're going to please them, and you're going to have to do things for them. That is what ESG stands for. And that is what is going on here. These ESG forces companies to take political stands, to take stands on everything. They're not allowed to just be companies anymore, because companies shouldn't be these greedy big companies that people like. It's too capitalist to them. They shouldn't be very capitalist. No. They got to realize that when you get that big, you're on a global scale. So you need to think of yourself on a collective, and you need to work with governments. We're going to continue on that. Let's keep going here. Dunkin' Donuts operates 20 locations in Russia, according to a company spokesperson. Subway has 446 franchise locations in the country. American multinational food and beverage maker Mondelez, the parent of brands like Oreo, Ritz, and Chips Ahoy, has an even bigger footprint in the country that it has yet to give up. Mondelez generates about 3.5% of its revenue from Russia, or of 3.5% of its revenue from Russia, or about $1 billion. So look at what they're telling these companies to do. We don't give a shit about your money. We don't care how much you're going to lose. We don't care if your employees are going to suffer. And that's the most fucked up part too. If these companies pull out, and the companies that did already pull out, when they're losing a ton of money because Russia is a gigantic country and a gigantic market, they will be fucking grilled if they fire and lay off a ton of people because they won't be able to afford to pay them. The same people that say all these companies need to pay people more are now asking them to take gigantic revenue hits. Think of the hypocrisy of these fucking people. And again, forcing companies who employ Russians, who give Russians money, Russians that, again, don't agree with the war more than likely, what never had a true chance to actually vote for Vladimir Putin. It's a sham election. We're punishing them. We're not punishing Putin. We are punishing the Russian people. And I get it. The purpose of sanctions is to put a squeeze on certain things and to make the country's life harder so that there's more pressure on the politicians to end what they're doing. It hurts the government because the people stop supporting what they're doing because they're not making money. Their way of life is really deterred. I get it. But that doesn't mean that private companies need to join in. And this is what they talk about. World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, Build Back Better. This is what they mean when they say public-private partnerships. The private companies are forced to do things by the public sector because the public sector's actions. And if they want to continue to get revenue, if they want to continue to be big players in the game, they need to make sure their ESG scores are good. Where does this fall under? Social. This is the Black Lives Matter movement of the globe right now. BLM, every company got behind it because they had no choice but to. You couldn't take a stand against BLM. You got destroyed. Now, if you decide to continue to do work in Russia socially, that's suicide. Your ESG score will be hit. And how will you continue to be a company? Because let me tell you the thing, all of these finance companies are on board with ESG. So what does that mean? The companies that are controlling your capital, your cash flow, your loans, your business believe in ESG. So if you're one of these major companies and you're not playing nice and your ESG score goes down, next time you need that loan, maybe we might not be able to give it to you. You don't have a good ESG score. Or that loan that you're continuing to pay, oh, you can't pay it all right now, or paying it all right now puts you under. Sorry, we're going to have to do that. You have a bad ESG score. You're a bad business. This isn't a myth. This isn't conspiracy. This is what's going on. And they make it seem like it's only in the financial sector, that ESG is only there. But when anything in the financial sector goes and they believe in it, it trickles down because they're the ones that determine how the capital flows in the country and around the world. Let's keep going. Meanwhile, Marriott International racks in 4.3% of its revenue, or about $440 million from Russian operations per Sonnenfeld's data. Again, $440 million is a huge chunk of money for a company. The list remains fluid, but U.S. publicly traded companies that have failed to cease business in Russia include cosmetics company Coty Incorporated, pharmaceutical company AbbVie, and cloud computing company Citrix. Now, let's talk about this here. They just put on blast publicly traded companies. Why did they do that? And they put and I get it, it's Yahoo Finance, so they're going to talk about that. But why was this article written? This article was written also to tank their stocks. So now investors who believe in this type of shit, who believe in ESG, would go, oh, you know what? Tank them. Fuck them. They're supporting Putin and Putin's war. Get them out of here. The S goes down on all of them. Social goes down. Tick, 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 tick. And now they're becoming persona non grata. Pressure is going on, and they're being told from the top, you are going to be destroyed if you don't capitulate. And this next paragraph here tells all the story. After mounting pressure, Burger King, which has more than 800 franchise locations across Russia, according to Sonnenfeld's research, became the latest fast food restaurateur to halt all corporate support to the Russian market in response to the war. Its parent company, Restaurant Brands International, said Thursday. Again, 800 businesses closed down. That is going to affect Burger King greatly, who has already had to restructure themselves a ton of times because they lose terribly to McDonald's all the time. You don't think this is going to put Burger King under? We could be saying goodbye to Burger King forever. If you're not a Burger King fan, you don't care. I happen to like their chicken fries. This pisses me the fuck off. And again, who does this hurt? This hurts the common Russian more than anything. Because newsflash to everybody that's cheering this on, the Chinese companies aren't fucking pulling out. The Indian companies aren't pulling out. Any Korean companies, any companies from Vietnam, any companies from the Middle East aren't pulling out. Instead, they're pulling in. They're going to flood the fucking market. These Russian people are going to sit there, and all we're doing is making the Russians and the Russian people resent the West and be like, you know what? As China, India, all these other countries come in to give them jobs again, to put them back to work, to give them food again. They're going to sit there and say, fuck the West. That's all this is doing. There's no reason why private corporations should be taking a stand. Let's keep going. The company joins other fast food peers that have arrived late to the party, but heeded to criticism, including McDonald's Corporation, Starbucks, Coca-Cola, and PepsiCo. Quote, we serve millions of Russian customers each day who count on McDonald's. McDonald's CEO Chris Kemsizitsky, I don't know how to say your last name, sorry, said in a statement Tuesday, at the same time, our values mean we cannot ignore the needless human suffering unfolding in Ukraine. Yes, I love that coming from McDonald's. A fast food chain cannot ignore needless human suffering when they actually serve sludge to people. The hypocrisy of McDonald's giving a fuck about people's lives when they serve fast food, which is not healthy. Great for calories if you're a bodybuilder and you like lifting. Quick calories, eat some McDonald's, you'll get it. But outside of that, it is shit food. It's not good for you. But they care about human life so much. They care about that human life that they need to pull out. And again, no one, the Russian government is not getting hurt by this. Don't believe that bullshit. This is not hurting Vladimir Putin in his war effort. It's only pushing Russia closer into our enemy's arms and creating alliances there. Yeah, that's all that's doing there. Great job geopolitically, West, especially you, Joe Robinette Biden. You're a fucking leader of men. Let's keep going. According to new MKM Partners research note, McDonald's suspending operations in Russia will cost the company $50 million a month. $50 million a month. I don't know how many companies can handle that. I really don't. We'll see what happens to their employees. We'll see what happens in the United States and their employees. They already cut down because they started to automate everything because they have to pay people $15 an hour. You see less people in the stores now, they're all in the back. You have one kid that comes out, walks up front, and maybe takes an order. Everything else is from the kiosk. They have kiosks there now. People don't do much there. There's less people working at McDonald's. And now this is going to reduce it even more because they're losing a ton of fucking money. Let's keep going. Sonnenfeld's list can be found here and is updated every hour to reflect new announcements from companies in real time. When this list was first published on February 28th, only several dozen companies had announced their departure, he said on the website. And then the list is here of the companies that haven't left yet and exactly what they publicly get. How many locations are there? How much they make? What would they lose is all there. So let me tell you this. That's the end of the article right there. Where's this guy's name? What was his name? That compiled the list. Why did I lose it? I'm trying to get his full name because the guy's an asshole. Honestly, the guy is a fascist. He's doxing companies because of his fucking belief. Sonnenfeld something. He's a professor. Because of his belief in the war being so bad, Yale professor Jeffrey Sonnenfeld. So it's not surprising he's from Yale. He's a Ivy League douchebag. But he's doxing companies and what they make and what their arm is in Russia to try and scare people and to put the pressure on them to get out, to hurt their business, to hurt their capital in order to please the ESG overlords. And this comes back to the World Economic Forum, people. ESG is a World Economic Forum original, just like Build Back Better was. The insane amount of power, the man Klaus Schwab, and if you don't know his name, go look him the fuck up and you better learn it. Because that man has an unbelievable amount of power in this world right now. Anything he says begins to happen. I mentioned designer babies. I know that's been a sci-fi thing forever, but it was Klaus Schwab that said it's coming. He said that back in 2016, 2018, it happened. He said a lot of things. Weather control, he talks about how to would you control the weather. And we call people like Alex Jones and the likes crazy for talking about chemtrails. When this guy says it, it's great science. It's embracing the future. It's a fourth industrial revolution, of course. And he has talked about I don't know, I forget the name, not strategies, but it's the fourth industrial revolution. The book was written in 2016. And then he wrote another book that's a piggyback to that on how to get to the fourth industrial revolution in his eyes. And part of it, he already said they are testing how to create artificial clouds to create rain. They're trying to do that, to just puff them out and create rain so that countries that don't get rain, these deserts can get rain and get deforestation. But he also admits he has no idea what the fuck this is going to do to the rest of the world. So someone who's so scared of climate change, who is so scared of the weather, wants to control the weather and fuck with the climate even worse. That's what they want. So the things that he says are all occurring. And why? Because at Davos, at the World Economic Forum, the leaders of the world meet there. The most important people in the West meet there, and even some of our enemies. A lot of our enemies meet there. It's a huge, huge group of who's who. And then they start to implement it. And we're seeing it. This is the public-private partnership in action right here. The public is taking a stand, so the private needs to join suit. If you don't join suit, we will dox you and we will put obscene amounts of public pressure on you, as much as finance companies putting out publicly traded names and exactly what your handle is so people can go and down your stock. They are attacking in every which way. It's all ESG. This is all one world government bullshit. And it's here. And fun fact, Vladimir Putin was a member of the World Economic Forum for a long time. And so is Volodymyr Zelensky. So as fucked up as it is, question everything you know about the goddamn war. Question it all. Question everything you hear about the war. And know one thing is true. Putin invaded Ukraine. Putin is wrong for invading sovereign land. But the West is at fault as well. NATO is at fault. All the agreements broken with Putin over the years since the formation of NATO to not expand has really fucked things up in terms of trust from Putin and Russia over to NATO countries and NATO itself, and also his fear of NATO. As NATO says, we are not an offensive, we are a defensive group. It's pretty offensive to me if you keep on getting closer and closer and get on the border. There's three NATO countries sitting on the Russian border right now. And NATO is supposed to be a Russian deterrent. How can they not see that as an aggressive act at all. Again, not excusing what Putin is doing in Ukraine and what the Russian military is doing in Ukraine. There are war crimes being committed. There are civilians, hospitals, maternity wards being bombed. It is awful. And Putin deserves to be tried for war crimes and executed. And a lot of the people that do this deserve public executions. They are evil. What they're doing to Ukrainian people is evil, but it is not unprovoked. And Ukraine is just in the middle of a geopolitical dick measuring contest. And then you have this type of global bullshit right now that's going on with companies that are trying to form and put pressure to create public-private partnerships. Keep your eyes open for this shit, everybody. ESG is affecting all the companies. It will come to us. We will all have ESG scores as we get digital passports, as we get CBDCs, the digital currencies, as we get vaccine passports. You think having a credit score isn't going to be attached to how you spend your money or if you could spend your money? You think a credit score isn't going, a social credit score too, not just your credit. We already have an artificial fucking score to say how good, how trustworthy we are in terms of spending money, because the actual credit system is ridiculous. We shouldn't have that. That's already fucking illegal. We shouldn't do that. But then we're going to have a social credit system. China already has it. We're getting it. And this one is going to be globally mandated. And it's going to be uniform. People, this sounds like crazy conspiracy. And I hope it is. But I'm telling you it isn't. All you have to do is read. All I got to do is read. Go read Klaus Schwab's words. Go listen to his interviews. Go watch some of their videos. Look at some of their goals. They all make it present as benign. But when, you might not like Glenn Beck, but one thing he says is very true. When somebody says something, take them at their word. When they tell you you're going to own nothing and like it, take them at their word. When they put out articles that essentially everything is rented, you don't own anything, and you're supposed to be happy, take them at their word. That is a direct threat to the United States. Is a direct threat to you, to me, and to our way of life. Private property and private property rights, individualism and protecting those rights is what separates us in America from everybody else. That is the biggest thing. That is what creates our way of life. Private property. Peons being able to own private property. And I know you're going to have some assholes going, you don't even own your land. The bank owns your land. You have the ability to pay that off and own your parcel of land. Before America did this, there was no other place in the world that allowed people to even have that opportunity. Realize that before you open up your mouth. All right, then. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you all as well. As always, please like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars on Spotify and iTunes, and spread this word of mouth. Tell them that you like this crazy fuck ranting and raving about conspiracy theories. Whether you listen to me to enjoy me, you hate me, you just laugh at me, do it, please. And tell everyone to do it as well. Always on socials, go find the Alex Cuesta Show. Just go search it. You'll find it wherever it is. So, all right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. I will catch everybody on Monday after the weekend. Look out for the Alex Cuesta Show with my brother, David Cuesta, and a special guest coming out this Sunday. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good one.